I'm a great believer in eating when you're hungry.
Yeah, not just eating for the sake of it. So I've had so many people talk in general conversation about digestion. I feel like maybe 2 in 6 people continuously complain about digestion. So, talk to me about digestion and overall health and the importance of it.
Well, digestion is intrinsic to everybody. In order to be on this planet, you pretty much have to eat. And in my experience in the clinic, I see so many people having digestive issues. In children, we say that the root cause of all disease is based on their digestion. So, and I would say problems that have arisen in childhood are often exacerbated as they become adults.
Really?
So suboptimal digestion, inflammation caused by the digestive system, that there is a saying that you are what you absorb. So apart from the obvious problems of bloating and diarrhea and constipation and indigestion and all these, some of the more serious problems like colitis and so on, there is also a lot of suboptimal problems. A lot of people think they're eating healthy and they think that there's nothing wrong with their digestive system. However, in my experience, it's just not working as well as it can be.
So you talked about coming from childhood. So what sort of things would a parent look out for in their child's behavior, like eating behaviors, to sort of ensure that from a child they have good digestion going into adulthood?
Having a healthy appetite, but not being overly hungry all the time is really important. But in children, the main issue is tummy pains, also phlegm. So if your child is constantly very mucousy, not only in the nose, but just having things like even glue ear, things like that, it's a sign of residue from digestion, or it's suboptimal digestion. So having phlegm, such as snotty nose or glue ear or eye crusties and other signs of phlegm in the body, like in the frequent colds and things like that, is a sign that the digestive system is producing, it's got residue from digestion. Okay, and that can invade any part of the body.
It's interesting that you talk about that. I know that there's been a lot of studies and a lot of research about digestion for both children and adults today, and the link to, mental health issues, to a variety of immunity problems, and how it all comes down to poor digestion. And it's just interesting that you mention from a child, because really when you look at everything, whether it's from skincare to general overall health as an adult, if you look back at your childhood, if you didn't get the right sort of nutrients, like you're saying, as a child, or didn't have the best diet as a child, that's really reflective of who you are as an adult, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's it's just as it is, childhood patterns manifest in adult as well. So how you eat.
Sorry, no, you go.
How you eat as a child sets the roots for your future and your future health.
So what sort of tips would you give to a parent who has a child and they start producing signs of, like you mentioned before, all this mucus and all these other things that are developing in the body?
Okay, so having excess phlegm in the body, especially in the child's body, is always a sign that it is too much of something. It's an excess of damp and usually heat. Right. So in order to clear an excess, you probably just want to simplify the child's life as much as possible. Okay. What I find in at least the Western world is that children are eating all the time. They rarely have enough time that they don't have something in the mouth, which probably comes from partly, you know, when we were cavemen and we just had to eat as whatever we could find, wherever we could find it. Of course, you know, even in media, you know, the fat baby was considered the healthy baby.
Yeah, right.
And I think especially since formula milk and dairy consumption, for instance, the dairy consumption has increased dramatically from our grandparents' time. So dairy is in everything.
Yeah.
Also, the mechanisms of how dairy is now produced is very different from how dairy was produced in our grandparents' time. A lot of the cows are consistently lactating, so they're constantly in a state of being estrogenic, producing milk for, and then even when they're lactating, they're pregnant, they're impregnated again.
Oh, wow.
So you have pregnancy hormones. So the milk that we drink now is very different from the milk that we drink 100 years ago from a straight from a cow.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I lived up in Cairns for a time, and there is a place there called Mungali Creek, and they only service milk for the North Queensland region up there, and or far North Queensland, I should say. And their milk is traditional. So they don't, like you mentioned, impregnate cows. It's a natural cycle. And when that cow is ready to produce milk, they make it, which is why they only service very small area of the far north, because it's not for mass scale production to send out to the populace. It's only just, you know, whatever they can produce in that cycle. They also have holiday periods where they don't actually produce any dairy products at all because their cows are in respite. They're having a break. They're taking time out. And so it's interesting that you say that, because I'm not good with milk or dairy products at all. I was allergic as a baby. I was raised on soy milk. As an adult, I started having it because I was drinking coffee. And then it occurred to me, I don't know why I'm doing that, because I've never been good with dairy. So I stopped having it. So I no longer have dairy again. But when I was living up in Cairns, I did try the milk from Mungali Creek. And I must say, I had a very different physical response to drinking it. I didn't have my usual side effects that I would have got from dairy because of what you said. It was more of a natural process. There was no forced hormones. There was nothing, you know, given to the cow. The cow had its cycle, they milked it, and then moved on to the next cow. And so I actually enjoyed the milk while I was living up in Cairns. It still had the very creamy texture on top. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was far more expensive to have, but when I'm only having it for my coffee, I quite enjoyed it. It was really nice. And then
milk is homogenized and pasteurized, right? Okay, so when you pasteurize milk, you actually kill the enzymes because you're heating it, right, to destroy bacteria and bugs and so on that might be in the milk.
Right.
So when you do that, it makes it harder to digest as well. So that could be causing some sort of phlegm issues as well. It's interesting to know that without stepping on dairy, you know, corporations.
Yeah, of course.
You know, that if you give a baby calf pasteurized milk, it will not survive. So
interesting.
Much intervention, even though you think that these foods are unprocessed, they are.
They are.
They are.
Yeah.
But getting back to children's digestions, my suggestion is if your child is really phlegmy, the first thing I would normally say is just get your kid off dairy. I think dairy can be used in the right kind of, I mean, there's obviously some people that cannot digest dairy.
Sure.
You know, probably I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't think Asian cultures in generally do very well with dairy, to be honest. So dairy in certain forms, such as cheeses, hard cheeses, are easier for me to digest.
Okay.
Or better.
Yep.
So, but you know, things that are like I went to a cafe and I ordered a milkshake with ice cream.
Yep.
I'll be, you know, having an appointment with the bathroom or a couple.
A regular one throughout the day.
So obviously,
yeah,
my body does not do well with it.
Yeah.
And even as adults, quite a lot of people that are very phlegmy after colds, I would say go off all things dairy. You see, the other thing that might be a bit interesting is that some people believe animal products, not just dairy, the body has an immune reaction to it. And that's why that can be one of the reasons why we have so many kind of immune related issues in the world currently.
It's such a controversial topic, and you don't want it to be controversial. You just want to openly talk about it. But it's interesting that you talk about how the human body, when it comes down to some studies, and I have read some official studies about it too, is that a lot of us have digestion issues when it comes to digesting meat. And if you go back to the hunter-gatherer days, and this is just me theorizing here, so there's no science to back this. This is just things that I've read and information articles, but I look back and see that when we were hunters and gatherers, we weren't really eating meat in the context that we're eating it today, because you had to hunt for the meat and you didn't always come back successful from a hunting trip, which means you were stuck with berries and nuts or, whatever you could forage in the forest, right? So, but eating it every day, is that necessarily a good thing or bad thing for our digestion? I kind of feel like it warrants a conversation without it always being branded as controversial.
Absolutely. And like one thing might work for somebody, it might not work for another person. So I think that's really, really important to distinguish. I am definitely not saying to go frugivore.
No, of course not. No, of course.
Having said that, I have gone through certain periods of my life where I was very high plant-based. And for me, that really helped my digestion. Yeah.
And how did you relate the differences between eating, a non-plant based to a plant-based? How did you feel? How was your digestion? How did your overall health feel?
Well, the first thing is I became so much lighter. I just felt like I wasn't weighed down by anything.
Yeah.
Second thing was I felt like I needed less sleep. And
really?
Because a lot of energy is diverted into digestion, and meats is one of the most heavy things to digest, right? Meats and fats, really.
Yeah.
So if you're not spending the energy to digest, you're releasing that energy for repair and restoration for the rest of your body.
Yeah.
I think the third most important thing is the mental clarity that comes with just eating very fruit-based and also plant-based kind of diets.
Yeah,
because it's just something I've noticed. I do talk to other people and they'll probably say the same thing. I think you'll just notice that you just run cleaner. Eat a very heavy meat diet, you actually change the gut bacteria to be more acid forming in your bowels, and that can sometimes create some sort of kind of leaky gut. And as soon as you've got leaky gut, you can have an immune reaction. So that might be somewhere some issues with digestion, and the proteins from the animal products, whether it be dairy or meat, can actually pass through that barrier of your bowels, and then you can have an immune response. But so you are basically what you digest. And in Chinese medicine, the organ of digestion is the spleen and the stomach. Okay, so and like we said, we really want to bring kids to have good habits when they're young, because whatever is your foundation it can affect you negatively as you get older. Also, the spleen and stomach organ strength. So if you want to think of the spleen and the stomach, it's like the fire within your body that boils up the food and cooks it and breaks it down into something that's easily digested. So you want to keep the energy of your spleen and stomach really strong.
With digestion and things you mentioned with using Chinese medicine and things, are there techniques and things that you use through Chinese medicine to help when someone does come in, whether it be I don't know, do you treat children or adults and treating digestion issues? Is it something that Chinese medicine can help with a good diet?
I mean, in my opinion, yes, absolutely. For instance, if you have a lot of fluid retention and if you bloat easily and you never have any hunger, that is a sign of spleen deficiency, and you probably would like to have acupuncture works on meridians for the organs, so you might want to work on increasing the energy.
Yep.
Hopefully what you will notice is just a decrease in all of your symptoms. It might be subtle to begin with, but the idea is to keep working on it. And herbs are a great way of just boosting that spleen and stomach energy as well.
Yeah, right. Okay. And so, is that something that can easily be implemented with young children?
Yeah, that's kind of like that's a hard one to answer. Some people are very motivated, some people think they're motivated, and some people just will not change their life at all.
Right.
No matter what you tell them. There are some people that just like their routine. You know, habit is one of the hardest things to work with. So, but you know, you just work with what you get.
Yep.
You can, hopefully, if they hear it enough times, or if they have enough issues, people will eventually see why persistence actually does benefit. In terms of things, definitely I would say simplify your eating. I believe, anyway, eating more fruit and vegetables helps. And I know a lot of people say that they get bloating or they can't digest fiber, but it's about getting the right bacteria in your guts to help break down that fiber, because there is even the insoluble fiber, there's soluble and insoluble fiber in fruit and vegetables.
Right.
But the insoluble fiber, which is harder, just seems to pass through you. There's actually bacteria in your guts that actually break down that kind of fiber, and they create short-chain fatty acids, and that's actually one of the most powerful things that you can do to your body to reduce inflammation. So you just, there is that need to be a bit persistent with things and to create the right environment for those good bacteria in your guts to grow. Fruit and vegetables have fiber. No meat, eggs, or dairy has any fiber. There's also things that also promote digestion. I'll really talk quickly. So if you have a lack of appetite, or you're feeling like things just get stuck in your stomach, some of the good home remedies include ginger. Ginger is very strong stimulant for the stomach and the spleen. It warms up your digestion, so you know that inner combustion to get things out. So does black pepper. So the other tip I'm going to give you is to so if you have a really, really weak stomach and spleen, I would just say not too much raw foods to begin with.
Right. Okay.
Just, warm foods. There are situations where I would not recommend that, but this is just basic tips. I think if you really wanted better advice or more comprehensive advice, then I think you should speak to some sort of healthcare practitioner. I just want to point out that, you know, a lot of people come with iron deficiency and they'll be on iron tablets.
All right. Yes.
All of their life. Okay. But what I find really interesting is no one ever really asks, why are they iron deficient?
Yeah, right.
You know, say, maybe they have heavy menstrual bleeds or whatever. But we get so much iron in the Western world through sources.
Yep.
Why isn't that woman absorbing the iron from the food she's eating?
Right.
So rather than just sticking another iron tablet in, what is it that is with the body that is not doing what it's supposed to be doing? We're not short on animal products here. And the other, it's not just animal products. You know, most plants and also has a very high iron content. So
that's interesting you say that. So finding the cause more than just sugarcoating it by saying, oh, it's fine, I take a tablet every day.
Maybe your digestion was a bit stronger, you might not need that iron tablet.
Yep.
Once again, we can open up a can of worms because there's so many avenues you can go down here. You know, so much happens in the gut. I mean, it's a lot of our immune response is there as well. Yep. So I really want to look at your digestion. But I mean, I think I've just given a couple of tips not to eat all the time. I'm a great believer in eating when you're hungry.
Not just eating for the sake of it.
A lot of people will come to me and say, I'm really, really tired all the time, but I'm eating I'm eating all the time to try to get the energy. And really what they should be doing is not eating as much. There's probably just one other thing that I can recommend, like avoid dairy, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing is don't have too much complex carbohydrates.
Okay. So like breads and pastas and
bread, pastas and rice and so on.
right.
They do give you energy, but I think if they do form a bit of dampness as well,
Okay.
which transmutes into phlegm. So when you see somebody that does a very big carb load, like rice or bread, quite often they do feel tired. Like if you're feeling tired after a meal, it's because your blood sugars have spiked after.
Yep.
That's a tiredness. So if you're especially trying to get rid of the dampness and the bloating and the phlegm, I would not do complex carbohydrates such as I would try to do things that sustain your blood sugar. And I just don't think, in my experience, rice and pasta and bread really serve people well.